Straight Shift with the Car Chick, the podcast that's all about cars, buying, selling, fixing, and driving, and sometimes running fast if you're the Car Chick. Now, here she is.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Straight Shift. Today we are going to be talking about car shopping pet peeves. I've been buying cars for people for the better part of 15 years, and I have great relationships with dealers all over the country. And as a result of those relationships, as well as my process, my car shopping experience tends to be very different than that of the average consumer. But I tell you what, even I get frustrated sometimes. And the past month or so, I have found particularly frustrating because of the crazy market and the pandemic situation that's going on right now. So today I wanted to share with you some of my biggest pet peeves, not just to vent, although there's some therapeutic value in that, but to hopefully help you avoid some of these frustrations when you're out shopping for a car for yourself. So let's just dive into it. Number one, the way some dealers answer the phone. And this is true not just of car dealerships. I could make this argument about any business. When you call them, the person who answers the phone, and in a dealership, that is their receptionist. And this is the person who answers the phone, but also is usually the person that you speak to first if you walk into the dealership. Therefore, that person is very often your first point of contact with the dealer. Therefore, your first impression of that dealership and your first customer experience. And most of the people that I talk with are very good. They're very professional. Some of them are even bright and cheery on the phone. But I've been amazed at how many of them sound bored and like you are inconveniencing them by calling. You'll get things like, "Hi, welcome to such and such car dealership. How can I help you?" Or, "Hello, this is such and such car dealership. How may I direct your call?" Really? I'm so motivated to do business with you with that tone of voice and that attitude. So that's just something that just bugs me because it's such an important part of the customer experience. And even for me, it definitely taints my impression of that dealership. I understand people have bad days, but when you are the voice and the face of any business, I don't care how bad of a day you're having, you have to turn the smile on, both on your face and in your voice, and be cheery, whether you feel it or not, because it's just so important for the customer experience. And that's really critical to any type of business these days. So that's just one thing that bugs me. And I've heard it a lot lately. And I know people are extra stressed, but still, come on, people, be nice on the phone. This is assuming they answer the phone at all, which leads me to my number two pet peeve, bad communication, or in some cases, no communication whatsoever. Again, the last couple months have been very unusual in the market. For most dealers across the country, they have had record months, which is fantastic and is helping to make up for the couple of months this spring when everybody was under lockdown that were absolutely terrible. But I have been amazed at how difficult it is to even get someone on the phone. My process involves calling the managers, the senior leadership at the dealership that can make decisions, so it is a little more challenging for me to get the right person on the phone, even in normal times. But right now, it's been hard to just get a hold of anybody. There have been several dealers where I've left multiple voice messages. I have even broken my own rule and resulted to the email contact form on their website, which you should just never do, or even the chat, which again, something I recommend you never ever do. I was trying to buy a Nissan Rogue, a pre-owned car for one of my clients down in Atlanta. And I was trying to get a hold of one of the Nissan stores down there that had a really nice little certified pre-owned Rogue on their lot in my client's price range. And I finally got a salesperson to text me back, call me back, but I had been trying to get a hold of the manager who had responded occasionally, but was not getting me the information that I needed. I need to know more about the history of the car. I need to see the repair order from what they did to recondition it for resale. I have certain things in my process that I have to go through in order to vet that car. And they kept saying, yeah, she'll call you back. The manager will call you back. She'll get back to you. And days and days and days and days and days went by and they never did. So I ended up buying a different little Rogue from a Hyundai dealership. It wasn't certified pre-owned, but boy, was it nice. And they were very, very responsive. They were equally busy, but they had a salesperson who was extremely responsive and texted me back all the time and ran back and forth to her manager and got me the information that I needed, even though the manager was too busy. But she kept him in the loop. He knew who I was. We were able to get the pricing decisions, and it worked out great simply because that person decided that she wanted that sale and it was a high priority, and she was a fantastic communicator. But I've had several other dealers. I had a Mazda store here in the Charlotte area. And granted, this store, and I'm not going to call them out because I never call any dealerships out by name, but this is one of the worst dealerships, I think, in the entire country. They just do not have their act together at all. But I was looking for a pre-owned Mazda CX-9 within a certain price range and a very specific rare color combination for a client. And they happen to have one on the lot, at least listed on their website. So after leaving probably 5 or 6 voicemails directly for the manager on his direct phone, sending him emails directly, because if you're going to contact a dealership via email, don't use the contact form on their website if you can at all avoid it, because all that does is put your information into their lead database, and you'll get all these emails back that say they're from the internet manager or the general manager, or sometimes you'll get a flood of emails from 10 different people at the dealership. But those emails are not from actual humans. They're all computer generated. And that really frustrates me because when I'm specifically asking a question, like, please send me the Carfax on this vehicle. Hey, can the manager please call me back to discuss this? And it's obvious that a human is not even bothering to read my emails. They're just sending out these autoresponders. And that's what happened with this dealership, because I couldn't get a hold of any of the managers through their individual emails. So I broke my own rule. I resorted to the contact form, and it kind of got funny at some point because I kept getting the autoresponder emails like, hey, we've been trying to reach you. No, you have not. You have not made any effort to reach me. I've been trying to reach you, and you just send me these stupid autoresponders and never read my responses to you at all. And then I got a whole bunch of saying, hey, what time do you want to stop by for your test drive? I don't, because you haven't even told me if the car is even on your lot. You've had it listed for 3 weeks, but there are still no pictures. What is going on? So it frustrates me when there's obviously not a human reading the emails like they're supposed to and responding. I would blame it on the crazy busy pandemic situation, but this is just that dealership. And I've even had a few dealerships where I have gone so far as to use the online chat function. If you go to a dealer's website, on most of them, there's a little chat box in the lower right-hand corner, and you can chat live with someone. Be aware that that someone, 90 to 95% of the time, is not someone at that dealership. That functionality is almost always outsourced to a third-party company that handles that for the dealers. Their internet department may have visibility into it and might, if they see a chat, they might jump in and you actually are talking to someone at a dealership, but that's very, very rare. Normally, you're talking to a customer service agent who is most likely working from home. Great gig. But what frustrates me about those things is, again, they don't actually bother to read what you write half the time. They're just clicking little buttons in whatever computer system they use to interact with you that have canned messages. So when I'm online chatting, as a last ditch effort to try and get a hold of someone, I put in, this is my full name. Here's my contact information. I need the sales manager to contact me directly, not a salesperson, a sales manager, and I need this information. Boom, 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 boom. And that's the message that I put into the chat. Clearly, that's too much information for them because I always get back, hi, this is so-and-so. Who am I chatting with today? Read my freaking message. What car are you interested in? read my freaking message. I have to say back so many times, please read previous message. Please read my message. And they just, half the time they don't. And then they say, once they start reading, oh, I'm sorry. And then they go read what you wrote. And I say, please have this person contact me. I gave up telling them not to enter me into their lead system because I just think that there's no choice for that. But half the time, not even half the time, more like 90% of the time, I get a message back from their internet department, or I just get the automated emails as if I had contacted them through the email contact form. Or if I do get a live human calling me, they're like, hey, what car were you interested? It's not the sales manager. They don't know who I am. They don't know why I chatted. They got none of the information that I painstakingly gave to the chat rep. I don't know if that's a chat rep not putting the information into the system, or if it's the person who received it not bothering to actually read the notes. They're just like, oh, new lead, and make a phone call. So it drives me crazy when they don't listen to you. And this is, again, why a lot of people hate car dealerships and salespeople, because they feel that they don't listen to them. So don't bother contacting a dealership through their email contact form or their online chat. Both are completely and totally useless. If you want to contact them via email, go to their staff or meet our team page. Most dealerships have them, some don't. And hopefully there will be a contact email address for individual staff members, and then you can target exactly who you want to get a hold of. That works way better because that does not put you into their lead system because you're sending an email from your email client, not going through their contact form. But it just really frustrates me when they have really bad communication. All right, I'm going to take a really quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about some frustrating things that can actually cost you money, not just make you bang your head into the wall. I'll be right back after this. Do you hate car shopping? Do you worry about being taken advantage of or about finding the right car at a great price? Buying a car can be a frustrating and time-consuming experience. But what if you could get a great deal without having to do a ton of research, without having to haggle, and without the fear of buying a lemon? You can. As your personal car shopper, the Car Chick will help you pick the perfect car based on your unique lifestyle, budget, and personality. She'll handle all of the legwork and negotiating for you. All you have to do is sign the papers and take the keys. It's that easy. To learn how the Car Chick can save you time, money, and hassle on your next car purchase, give us a call at 704-248-8706. That's 704-248-8706. Or visit us on the web at thecarchick.com.
Ah, the Car Chick is back for more Straight Shift.
Welcome back to The Straight Shift. Today we're talking about my biggest car shopping pet peeves that I want you to be able to avoid so that you are not banging your head into a wall. And more importantly, you're not losing money. I was talking about the bad communication with dealerships, and one of the things I find very frustrating is when the dealer does not send me the full Carfax vehicle history report. Most dealers that I work with anyway will have the Carfax report linked on their website in the vehicle description, so I don't even have to reach out to them and ask for it. It's already there. But sometimes they don't have it, or they do have a link, but the link doesn't work. Somebody didn't link it up correctly in their system. And I have to reach out and say, hey, can you please send me the Carfax report for this pre-owned vehicle? And half the time, they will send me just a picture of the first page or the header of the first page, not the full 2, 3, 4, 5 page report. And the reason that they do that is because most people just read the header of the Carfax. They don't read through the details of the full report because they're looking to see if the Carfax is, quote, clean. And the term clean has become a term both the dealers use and car shoppers use to mean that the car has not been in an accident. Well, I have a very different definition of clean, and I am looking for 30 different pieces of data on the Carfax report. So when the dealer just sends me, hey, the Carfax is clean, it's a great vehicle, blah, blah, blah. And I did this very recently with I'm shopping for a pre-owned Mercedes G-Wagon. You know, those big, boxy, unbelievably expensive, like literally they're $200,000 brand new. Those big, boxy SUVs that they are ridiculously expensive and totally unreliable, which is just kind of funny for that price. It should be rock solid reliable. But looking for a used one, particularly a used one under the $100,000 price point, is very difficult because these things just do not get maintained properly because the second owners that buy them don't understand usually just how much it costs to keep one of these things running properly. And so they buy it because it's really cool, and then they realize they can't afford to maintain it, and then they sell it. So it's difficult to find one of these things on the secondary market. And if I didn't have a client who dearly, dearly loved them and understands what she's getting into, I wouldn't be shopping for this thing. But I've been looking all over the country for one of these that's still in good shape, and I found one at a dealership down in Texas, but they didn't have the Carfax report listed for it. So I reached out and I said, hey, please send me the Carfax. And they were responsive. They sent it back, and the manager down there said, yeah, it's great car. It's really clean. Here's the Carfax. And all they sent me was a screenshot of the header page for it. And sure enough, it said, no accidents. But that's not my definition of clean. So I had to go back and say, please send me the full report. When I ask for a Carfax, I mean the whole thing, not just the header. So they did send me the full thing. And reading through this report, I read through a Carfax the way a police detective would read through an autopsy report to try and figure out what happened to this poor victim. And that's what this G-Wagon was. This car was a victim. So here's the deal, just to share the story with you. The G-Wagon was purchased from Mercedes of Beverly Hills, and it spent the first few years of its life in the lap of luxury, driving around Beverly Hills, being serviced regularly and properly by Mercedes-Benz of Beverly Hills. And then it was stolen. It was ripped from the loving arms of its owner, and it disappeared, and the police could not find it. So after 60 days, the insurance company coughed up the money and paid out the owner. And then 6 months later, the police apparently found it. It shows up again. So we don't know where this poor car was while it was being held hostage by its kidnappers. Usually these cars, especially in Southern California, they end up at a chop shop. If you've ever seen the movie Gone in 60 Seconds, either the original or the Nicolas Cage version, they were both really good. That whole scenario where they were hired as professional car thieves to steal a wide range of higher end vehicles to be shipped overseas by an organized crime syndicate. That actually happens. It does work that way. So these vehicles are usually either chopped for parts, which with Mercedes can be a little bit more difficult because the German cars, particularly Mercedes, BMW does this as well. Because of their German over-engineering, cars these days have a main computer, and then each of the different main systems in the car also has computers. And in the Mercedes, they have a communication system. So when you start the car, the main computer sends out a message to all of the other systems under its command and said, all right, everybody, check in. And each system has to check in with a passcode, essentially. And if they don't send the right passcode, the main computer says, whoa, wait a minute, we have an unauthorized part in here. I'm not going to start. And that is an anti-theft thing. So it makes it difficult for chop shops to chop these cars up and then sell out the parts to then be sold on the black market and put in other cars. So what happens if you actually own one of these cars and you do have to have a part replaced? I've got a client who's got an older BMW X6 that's going to need a new transmission. And when they do that, the dealer is going to have to plug up to the car's computers and say, hey, computer, we put a new part in, and basically introduce them. Part, this is the computer. Computer, this is the part. Everybody shake hands, play nicely, set the passcodes, and you're good to go. Only the dealers have that software to do that. It is an anti-theft thing, and it's been fairly effective. So I suspect that this G-Wagon was more likely stolen. They stripped the VIN plate off of it, and I suspect it was on deck to be shipped overseas or moved south of the border to be sold to drug cartels or whatever. But for some reason that didn't happen. But I found the auction records for the car with pictures, which was great because once it was recovered, the insurance company, obviously, they get the car back because they'd already paid out on it, and they sell it at auction to try and recoup some of their costs of what they paid out. I was really lucky to be able to find those auction records and the pictures where it showed a replacement VIN tag, and the car did look to be intact. So I don't think it was stripped for parts. If they did, then the insurance company paid to put it back together before they sent it to auction. But I don't know. There are no records of that. And so it was really cool to be able to see that history. But then the car was sold and it went to Texas, and there weren't a lot of records there. And then there's a record of it being titled in Indiana or Illinois. Can't remember. And I don't know if it went to Texas immediately because Texas is one of those states where you can launder the title. What I was surprised was that I didn't see a branding record for branded stolen car on it. And I was expecting to see that. So it just, again, makes it a little bit fishy. And then there was nothing else in the history until it was on this dealer's lot in Texas. It has low miles. It's got about 40,000, 45,000 miles on it. But because it has this really sketchy history, I can't recommend to my client that we take a serious look at it because it's been so crazy. Oh, and then it was sold in Texas and then repossessed 2 months later. And that's how it ended up at this dealership. So just a crazy, crazy situation. But this is why you have to read the entire Carfax report, because just being clean, meaning no accidents, doesn't necessarily tell you the full history of the car and whether or not it's going to be a good one. If you want to learn more about how to read a Carfax, I did a podcast on that. So go back and listen to that, or go to my blog on my website, thecarchick.com. And I have an article about that as well. Don't judge a car by its Carfax. So when they don't send me the full report, I get a little bit irritated because it hides sometimes a very colorful history that you want to avoid. Next one is dealers who insist that the customer has to come into the dealership to take delivery of the car. I have been doing this for a very long time, and some of my dealers have, from the get-go, starting 15 odd years ago, have been great about, we can do a home delivery, because that's something that I always push for the convenience of my clients. It's for their experience. They don't want to go to the dealership, because even when you do have all the paperwork together, it still takes more time to take delivery at the dealership than if they bring the car to you and you sign the papers in the comfort of your own kitchen. And some of my dealers have been great from day one about doing that. They'll even deliver 2 to 3 hours and within a radius of their dealership. And other dealers over the years have been like, no, we can't do that. We can't do a home delivery. And it's been funny since the pandemic situation started. All of a sudden, they can do home deliveries. Amazing. Nothing's really changed except they were suddenly really motivated that this is the only way they can sell cars. Oh, look, we can do a home delivery. And I've just been laughing and been like, I told you so. And now I'm going to expect this going forward. So when the pandemic is over, you're still going to have to do this for me. But there are still some dealers that really insist on the customer going into the dealership. And they'll say it's because they use these DocuSign pads, it's because of the paperwork security or their system, or it's because they are worried about, the Technically, if you take delivery of the car at home, the 3-day right of recension contract laws apply. But if you take delivery at the dealership, they don't. They come up with a whole bunch of excuses as to why they just really don't want to do a home delivery because it is a little more work for them. But I've had a dealer in Atlanta. Again, I've got all these interesting stories about dealers in Atlanta right now. I was shopping for a certified pre-owned Lexus hybrid for a client here in Charlotte. Hence, I had to look in Atlanta because there weren't any in Charlotte. And I found a really nice one at one of the Lexus stores down there. And we'd worked out a good price. I was working through a salesperson because, again, they were super busy, but I found a female salesperson and she was fantastic. Loved working with her. And she was doing the running back and forth to her manager. And I told him from the beginning, this is a person in Charlotte, will need to have the car delivered. Do you handle delivery out of state? Do you handle the DMV paperwork out of state? And yes, they could do the out of state DMV paperwork. They don't handle the transportation. I would have to arrange that. That's no problem. I can get on Central Dispatch and find a transporter, do that all the time. No big deal. We got everything together. And then all of a sudden the manager came back and said, oh, this is a certified pre-owned car. The customer is going to have to come here to the dealership to take delivery. What? Why does the car being certified pre-owned have any bearing on how we take delivery of it? And he's trying to explain through the salesperson because he wouldn't call me back directly. And she didn't even understand what he was trying to explain and what this excuse was. And he was just trying to say that, oh, well, it's because it's certified. Lexus doesn't let us do an out-of-state virtual delivery. The customer has to come to the dealership. Okay, number one, that is flat out not true. I have certified pre-owned cars from Lexus delivered to Charlotte from out of state or from out of the geography all the time. No big deal. And I even called Lexus corporate just to make sure they hadn't implemented some weird new rule. And they were like, what? No, that's not true at all. What dealership told you that? So I may have gotten them in a little bit of trouble. But it was just so strange. And furthermore, it's not like this was local and they're saying, hey, the customer just has to come in. We're talking between Charlotte and Atlanta, which is a 4-hour drive, and pandemic. Georgia is one of the hotbed states that has restricted travel from it. So even if she was going to risk her own health and put her 11-year-old daughter in a car, which they would have had to rent because her car died, hence we were buying a new one, and drive all the way to Georgia 4 hours, take delivery, either spend the night there and drive back, or then immediately drive back, and then have to quarantine for 2 weeks because they had been to Georgia. I mean, it was just ridiculous. And I finally said, you know what? Forget it. This means this is not our car. And the next day I found another one that was actually even a better color combination up in the Raleigh-Durham area, which is also about 3 hours away. No problem. 2 days later, the car was sitting in her driveway and she didn't have to go anywhere. So if a dealer tells you that you have to come into the dealership, particularly if you're shopping out of state and they want you to travel to their dealership to come pick up the car, call BS on them. There's no reason. There are no laws around that. There's no reason for that. It's just them being stubborn about it. And just don't do business with them. It's not worth buying that car. There are other cars out there. And finally, my number one pet peeve, and this has nothing to do with the current market, with the current pandemic situation. This is true all the time, and I have bitched and moaned about this for a couple of decades nearly. Bait and switch pricing. This is where the price that the car is advertised at, whether it's online or in a radio ad or a TV ad or even old school in the newspaper, that advertised price is BS because they have either conditions on it or they have a ton of different added on BS fees so that when you actually get there, the price of the car is very different than what they advertised it for. There are some states that are worse about this than others that I have found. Virginia and Florida are two of the worst states for this. And part of it is because there are very few state laws outside of places like California that protect consumers, that control the truth in advertising and what a dealer can say and what they can't say. And a lot of the time there is a disclosure, but you have to find the disclosure in, 4-point font somewhere on the website that explains this, that is hard to find. And even then you can't even read it. So what happens, there's a couple different ways to do bait and switch pricing. On new cars, a lot of the time dealers will have a pack. They'll have an accessory package that they add to the car, usually that runs anywhere from $1,000 to $1,800, usually in that $1,200 to $1,500 sweet spot, adding things onto the car that you don't necessarily need or even want. They might add window tints, which, not necessarily a bad thing. They will often put nitrogen in the tires. That's actually a good thing. They might put wheel locks on it, which don't even get me started how much I hate wheel locks. They might put a protection product on the car, which you probably don't want or need. They may put all-weather mats in the car that you may or may not want. It's just so they have this extra stuff that they can put on the car. And believe me, the cost of those individual items does not add up to even half of what they're charging for it. So this is just another way for the dealer to make a profit. I understand that. But what they do is they'll advertise the new car at a ridiculously low price to get you in the door. And then they switch and add on all these extra things so that you end up paying more than you would have paid at this other dealership that doesn't do that, that has a little more upfront, honest pricing. But the low price attracted your attention. It baited you and got you in their door. This is why I will always tell you, don't just shop for the price of the car. You start there and you negotiate the price of the car that you're buying. But then you need to ask for an out-the-door numbers breakdown. Out the door is a term in the industry that means the actual amount of money that you would stroke a check for and walk out the door with the keys in your hand. It includes your taxes, your DMV fees, dealer doc fee, and anything else they try to sneak on the car. The total number that you would actually strike a check for. It's called out the door. And don't let them just send you the total out the door number by itself. You need to see the full breakdown. Tell them you want a full numbers breakdown, and get it on a buyer's order if you can, because that is a legally enforceable document. So there's a lot of bait and switching that goes on with that. And they do it on used cars as well. Some of them will put an accessory pack on the used cars. Others will hide a bunch of fees. And this is the situation that I see a lot in Virginia and Florida. And this came to light because I was shopping last month for a Toyota Sienna minivan, a swagger wagon, in a conservative price point for a client down there who lives in the Villages, that fantastic retirement community. And I'm extra protective of my retired clients because they do really get taken advantage of. And this woman is the mother of a friend of mine, so I'm taking care of her as if she were my own mother. And it was very frustrating working with the dealers in Florida because of the way they do their pricing. Almost all of them, and it's just part of the culture with the dealers down there, is they advertise a car at a price. And I know how to look at a used car price online and get an idea of truly what it would be out the door with negotiating, but then adding back in your taxes and your fees, particularly with certain dealerships and how they do their pricing. I do this enough that I know these things. And what happens in Florida is they all charge what they call a reconditioning fee on all of their used cars. And this ticks me off because reconditioning a used car that you either take in on trade or buy at an auction, you have to do some things to it to, bring the service up to date. At minimum, you're going to do an oil change, probably rotate the tires and detail it. But usually they need a little bit more than that. They might need new tires. They might need new brakes. They might need other fluids that are dirty, have those replaced and are clean. Put a new battery in it, fix a shock, put a new shock in it. It just depends on what the car needs. But those reconditioning costs are just part of what you have in the car, what you as a dealer own the car for. And then you see how much sunk cost you have into it. And then you add on your profit and then you advertise it for sale. But these dealers then also charge a flat reconditioning fee. And they say, oh, well, that covers, our cost to recondition the car. Well, that doesn't make sense because every used car, the reconditioning costs are going to be different depending on what that exact car needs. So a dealer charging a canned $1,000 reconditioning fee, maybe if they were to charge that on average and not also charge for the actual reconditioning costs on average, that might work out for them. But that's not what they're doing. They are charging that $1,000 fee on top of the actual reconditioning costs. So you're paying twice for so-called reconditioning of this car. And it drives me crazy. They should not do that. The price of the car is the price of the car, what you own it for. This reconditioning fee is BS. And then some will just add on a whole bunch of other random fees. I was, again, shopping for a car in Atlanta, and there was this independent dealership that looked a little questionable to me, but they had some cars in the price range that I was looking for. And it was weird because they advertised the car for $12,000 on AutoTrader. And then I went to their website because you always need to do that. If you find a car on AutoTrader or Cars.com or Car Gurus, whatever aggregate site you're using, go to the dealer's website to see if they really have that car because the inventory on AutoTrader and Cars.com and those sites is not always up to date. So go to the dealer website, look up that same car. That tells me, okay, they probably have it in stock. But on their site, it was $14,000. So why is it $2,000 less on AutoTrader than on their website? And then when I got the out the door number, it was $19,000. And granted, Georgia taxes are a little over 6%, but that does not account for a massive difference. And when I got them to break it down, not only were they charging a $1,000 dealer processing fee, which was separate from their normal $699 dealer doc fee, and then they were charging several $1,000s for an extended warranty that I did not ask for. They're like, oh, that's on every car. You have to buy that. Ooh, okay. First of all, that makes me mad. Number two, that is illegal. They cannot legally require you to purchase an extended warranty for any reason. So they not only lied to me, but they broke the law in doing so. And so I sent a message to the Attorney General of the state of Georgia. But it was amazing because the $12,000 price it was advertised on AutoTrader, now all of a sudden you're looking at an out-the-door price of $19,000. That is $7,000 worth of complete and total BS. And so that really irritates me. So watch out. Be very careful for the bait and switch and get that out the door numbers breakdown so that you can see what else they're adding in there. And if you have a question about what any fee is, ask. Get them to explain what it is, justify it. And then, unless it's a fee that the government is charging, or it's their dealer doc fee, which they can't waive that for one customer and not other customers because it gets them in big trouble. There was a class action lawsuit about that. Other than those fees, anything else they try and put in there, feel free to question and call BS on and refuse to pay it. So I hope that these pet peeves of mine have given you some insight into things that you need to watch out for when you are car shopping, and it will save you the headaches and the frustrations, and most importantly, it will save you money. Until next time, folks, drive safely. I'm out of here.
The Straight Shift podcast is copyright Leanne Shattuck, the Car Chick, 2017. All views expressed by guest and or co-hosts are those of the guest and or co-hosts, and not necessarily those of Leanne Shattuck or the Car Chick.